Okay. All right, making space for 3x3 structures. I also made it so my bot can build production outside of my main base now, because I run out of space quickly with all these tech lab barracks. Depends on the map. Some main bases are pretty big, where I can fit like 15 of them, but some not so much. I need to look at placements map. So when I top out the 3x3 list, yeah, I was tutoring a student in a high school student in Java, and they were still using Greenfoot. I never heard of it before, but it was interesting. But it's built on like a version of Java that I used to develop on, like Java 1.3 or something from like 10 years ago. But it's nice. It's nice for the kids because it's like a simple way to build a game with Java. It's a lot easier than like Java FX. It's more slideshowy than before. Let me bring it up myself, actually. Oh, wow. Is the audio okay? Let me bring it up myself, actually. Oh, wait. It just fixed randomly. Oh, IntelliJ was indexing everything. That might have been the problem. Might be better now. Like just the ability for me to like click on this method and enter it. This requires indexing. So they're indexing my entire project after the reboot. So, well, 3x3 structures is less than 4. So I should have had enough for 4 3x3 structures. Ghost Academy, Double Inch Bay Armory. Let me double check this is working. If we put a breakpoint at the start. Yeah, usually, even when I'm like dropping frames, the audio for some reason still goes through okay. Oh, I probably shouldn't have bugs in my code, should I? Or syntax errors. Did I press the wrong button? No, I didn't. Shit. What's happening? There we go. Roasted beaver. I appreciate the stereotype jokes of Canadians that involve the beaver, because that just shows a little bit of knowledge about Canada. It's like, oh, you know our national animal. See, when you make fun of Canadians by saying "a boot," this, like, it's like we don't even say that. It's like a Minnesota accent you're imitating. But making fun of the beaver, that's just high end. All right, so 1, 2, 3, and then 4 on the wall. Maybe I should check. You can see I added production out here too. So anywhere close to like my natural, but far away from the enemy base is kind of area where I'll throw down more production. Macro command center spots. And then the whole idea of this algorithm is that there's always a 2x2 path, which is a lot harder than you would think to get to work. Because if you don't do this, then you're going to have trapped tanks and trapped everything. And obviously it's not very perfect. Like technically I could put another factory here and it'd be okay. Because the units can come out this way, walk down this path, and then walk out here. But all I'm saying is like, oh no, there needs to be a 2x2 path under every structure. Because if I put it here, then there's no 2x2 path underneath it. Let's take a look at the same map that game was on. Maybe there's a problem with that specific map where the algorithm was failing. So it was glittering ashes. Good truck launcher. Glittering ashes. Yeah, then you gotta make sure you always spawn the structure to the unit on the left as well. Because if you spawn on the right, they might get stuck. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Huh. Kind of weird how that didn't work. And the thing is too, when I was throwing down the 2-inch bays, I hadn't built the armory yet. So honestly, only if there's just 3 positions available, it should have worked. And then the armory would have had no place to be. But it's still, with only the Ghost Academy down, there should have been space for 2 hinge bays. We're in the same spawn position here too. Let's play this game out and see if my bot adds it correctly. Let's put a breakpoint there too. What do I call it? Like second layer of tech or something? There it is. Wait a minute. Oh, right. Okay. Okay, well that runs in the background. Okay, so I think this is more or less done. Some sort of bug unrelated to it. Right, so Rax production checks supply. So another issue I had last in that game versus the Zerg bot I'll be playing against is that I maxed out on bio units. And when I needed a Raven and I needed Vikings, I just couldn't build them because I was maxed on Marauders and Ghosts. So I want to leave some space. So I think before I max out, I want to make sure I have space for all of this and possibly SCVs as well. So let's go into the build barracks train. Oh, this is way off. Prioritize starport units over barracks units. Okay. Yeah, so right now I'm just checking to see if I can afford it. Yeah, but where are we on the breakpoints? Let's see here. Oh, because I'm editing this at the same time, I screwed up the breakpoints. Oh well, we'll just let it run, see what happens. So when I push out with my army, I should be building a factory and double hinge bays. Don't max with that. Yeah, so probably right before this I should do it actually. So like so if I need to save space, then continue. Because I still wanted to build add-ons for any barracks that require it. Okay. So to know how much space we need, we're going to need to know how many medevacs we have. Because I kind of want, what did I say in the notes? Sorry, let's go check out the game. Have we pushed out yet? No. Okay. Number of my units, including producing medevacs. And then we'll need to know how many ravens we have, how many Vikings we have, and how many SCVs we have. Ravens, Vikings. I guess even though I don't land my Vikings, we should probably at least write this in a way that'll include landed Vikings. And SCVs. Okay, it looks like we're moving out. So I'm building factory, Inge Bay, Inge Bay. Yeah, so I'm not sure what happened in that game. Why we ended up with only one Inge Bay. Unless I was completely blind and it was here the whole time and I missed it. This will be the starport probably. Yep, there's the starport. Alright, 1-1 just finally started. It looked like it was saving money for the starport and the medevac. I should change that. We're getting Cloak. And against Protoss we get the EMP upgrade. Nukes would be great, but there's no way I'm going to have it ready for tomorrow. But certainly, if we're doing a mass ghost build, we gotta have nukes. So we'll build that in at some point. Yeah, there's the army being built because one of these upgrades is about halfway done. Okay, that seems to be working fine. Call that an anomaly. Is this an expensive call? Kinda. Okay. So we'll just call it once, and then we'll pass them all into a function. So if or no, we can figure it out from this. Okay, so int num supply to save, we'll say. So basically it'll be like if I want 5 medevacs, it'll be five minus num medevacs. So if I already have 3 medevacs, this will save 2, then there'll be and same with the ravens. I want at least 2 ravens.
Target acquired.
So 2 minus num ravens. And same for Vikings. For now, I think, since we're just kind of doing this basic, since this bot I'm going to be facing just has overlords all over the place, we should probably keep the Viking count a little higher. We'll say 4 Vikings. And then plus max SCVs minus okay, these are all 2 supply units, so multiply them by 2. So if I want to maintain 5 medevacs, 2 ravens, 4 Vikings, and the maximum amount of SCVs I want to get up to, then I want to make sure I stay this much supply below 200. Yeah. Yuri with the YouTube donation, which I don't know how that works, but cool. You donated 3.9. Ooh. I guess based on the name, some Russian currency. ILS. What do Russians use? Rubles? I gotta look this up. Israeli. Ah, that's true. There are a lot of Russian Jews that immigrated to Israel back in the day. Cool. Or it just could be a random last name, and there is no Russian heritage. My last name is Welsh. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if any relatives as far back as I can go, they're actually from Wales. So... streamer giving out his last name on stream. Probably not a good idea. Okay. So the other thing is, like, what if I have 4 ravens and I only need to save 2? Right? I don't want this to be a negative number. I want this to be 0 at worst. So we'll take the maximum of 0 in that number. So maximum is 0 and 5 minus num medevacs. Maximum is 0 and 2 minus num blah, 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 blah. And we multiply it by 2. And then the number of SCVs we need. And then we can kind of just go 200 minus this. And then we can call this, change the name of this. So this will be like the, let me think. So the food used is greater than this. Unable to extract method. Why? Oh, I think I passed all those variables in. Never mind, let's leave it as one ugly statement. So if I'm at like 190 supply, I'll add 2 to it because I'm checking to see whether I can build a ghost or marauder. And if that's greater than 200 minus the amount of supply I want to save, then, okay, so this is returning the opposite of what I want. If it's less than or equal to, well, I say, then I can train bio. And then I can use this variable. So if not train bio, then I skip purchasing. Okay. So I think that'll be good enough to make sure that I can get the amount of starport units I want. Let's go check our train starport units to make sure we're actually building these things. So choose starport unit. So first of all, if we get a raven, if we need detection, then we get a Viking for every, if the, there's an overlord that needs to be killed and there's not an available Viking. Then we maintain 1 raven versus Zerg. Okay, so then we'll maintain 2 ravens versus Zerg. How many Vikings did I say again? 3 or 4? 4 Vikings, 5 medevacs. So then we want to maintain 4 Vikings versus Zerg. Make sure medevac's at a 1:4 ratio with the bio units. Build medevac if existing medevacs are dry. Okay, so even if I have more medevacs than that, if all the medevacs I have are dried out, then I'm going to need more. Won't need this anymore. And then maintain 5 medevacs total. Okay. So 5 medevacs, 4 Vikings, 2 Ravens. This will all probably be going away later anyways. Prioritize the Vikings over the Ravens as well. What I will need the Ravens for is clearing creep and clearing like burrowed zerglings in my expansions. You probably want to max the SCV math too. Yes, that is true. The SCV one's actually the most important to max, because I may want to like maintain 90 SCVs, for instance, but then as I build my orbital farm, I may drop that down to like 50. So there's a good chance that my max is I'm going to have a lot more SCVs than my max tells me. What the heck was that? Train. Yeah. It's very likely that the number of SCVs I have will be larger than the maximum of SCVs, where it's less likely with Vikings and Ravens and medevacs. Still possible, but... Typo and word medevacs. Save medevacs to the dictionary. Dictionary should definitely have the word medevac in it. Okay. So I think that's good, right? What were we even doing? Supply check on the racks production, right. Leave space for that. Is this even... Does the current generation know this has anything to do with porn? Remember back in the day when pornos actually got rated the same way regular movies did? I don't think these exist anymore, but there was a XXX rating. Actually, it technically didn't have to be in porn. It could just be something more violent than a rated R movie, for instance. It could be an X movie and so forth. Ignore overlords for attack target. Right, so I want my Viking hit squads to pick up the overlords, but I don't want my ghosts to be chasing the overlords, I don't think. Even though it's kind of cool to watch the overlords get sniped. I think I'd rather keep my army actually on the offense than constantly retreating for these overlords. And probably the same thing for creep tumors. So... for that, how are we selecting the target position for ghosts here? What is this doing? Marauders, less than distance. I see. Let the marauder lead the pack. Ghosts walk faster than marauders, so if I like send them across the map, they end up getting way ahead of the marauders. So this is just something saying like, okay, if you're on the attack, but you're closer to the enemy than the closest marauder is, then just retreat for a moment. So that'll just make my ghost constantly stutter back, allowing the marauder to stay in front. But okay, when I'm selecting a target position, I also want to make sure oh, never mind. That's what this entire thing's doing. If hitting the ground target, back up. Marauder exists and not in the lead. Otherwise, yeah, it's just using the attack either target, which means attack either an air unit or a ground unit. Now this is used with all my builds, so I don't think I want to change this value. So I guess we'll go back here and say something like if attack either position is Overlord or Creep Tumor, and maybe even and greater than 15 range away. Maybe I still want to go after the Overlord if it's nearby. So if my ghosts and marauders are moving across the map to attack and I produce a new ghost out of my barracks and it pops out and it sees an Overlord in my main base, it should probably kill that off and not ignore it. Yeah, so we'll do a range check as well. Then find a target. Okay, something like that. Now, I don't actually know what the target is, though. I just know the position. That's a pain. Well, it's time to get hacky for ProBots. We'll just ignore all Overlords and Creep Tumors, no matter the build. Which I think is fine. Creep Tumor actually is not a big deal. It's only if I can see a Creep Tumor from really far away that my army will like chase backwards for it for no reason. And most of the time when they're expanding creep and I'm far away, I can't actually see it. It's only if you're expanding it like into my command center. Yeah, so that's fine where that variable is set. Okay, this is probably at set air target. Attack closest air. Yeah, so I guess we can just add on to this monster. We'll just ignore 2 more types. We'll ignore overlords. And we'll ignore... Should we ignore creep tumors? I guess the other thing is when my Raven is crossing the map and it's like spotting all these creep tumors, it'll cause my Marauders and Ghosts to like back up and try to kill those creep tumors because they're closer to my base than the enemy. Yeah, so let's ignore all the creep tumors. All the creep tumor types. Because I think there's like 3 creep tumor types, right? Yeah, there's a creep tumor, there's a burrowed creep tumor, and then there's the creep tumor that just popped out of the queen. So there's actually 3 different types of units that all represent a creep tumor. It will probably mean my army will just like kind of walk right by a creep tumor that's expanding, which sucks. It'd be nice if they're walking by a creep tumor that they pick it off. I think they'll still attack it if it's in attack range, but otherwise they're not going to change their path to go find it. Oh wait, this is closest enemy air unit. Definitely don't need the creep tumors in here. Okay, so that'll ignore the overlords. Let's see where this, how it finds the creep tumors. Probably a set ground target. Sometimes ignore phase shifts for adepts. Yeah. Good enough. Probably don't want to keep this too, so let's leave a little note here. As this is just like a hacky one-time fix. Okay. How am I for time too? I gotta submit within 3 hours. And I need time to test all this stuff. And test that I haven't broken other things. And time to fix things if I did break things. Alright, so we're ignoring overlords. We're ignoring creep tumors. There's one other thing that just occurred to me a moment ago too. Oh, it was this. Never mind, I already had it written down. Build bases on location. That's an easy one. For Ghost Marauder, I just want to do okay. So just building them on location rather than building in my main base and floating them out. Now I want to make sure I cover my third base though when I'm building it on location. I noticed there it wasn't doing that. So that was probably back here somewhere. Set defensive position. Yeah, yikes. What is this method doing? I think this is finding if there's any enemies in my main or natural base. Or any enemies close to my main base. It'll attack there, otherwise it goes to the rally position, which would be where? Get army rally. And air units will attack the closest air unit, or they'll go to the same army rally. Okay, so it's probably in this method. Check third base if OC. I think I want to protect it no matter what. Or maybe I want to make my third base an orbital. My main and my natural are orbitals. So basically, if it's in production, right? Yeah, maybe forget this check altogether. I'll say, okay, if the third base is my base and it's not a planetary, then I want my army there. Game cache dots baseless dot get to probably need a null check. Type does not equal planetary. All right, so if I've taken my third base and there's a CC there and the CC is not a planetary fortress, then I want to protect at the PF. Otherwise I protect the natural if that's an OC. Otherwise I'm up in my main ramp. Now if my third is a planetary, do I really want to be hanging out in my main base? If my natural base is a planetary, then hanging out at the top of my ramp in my main base makes sense. But I think once I take my third, I just always want my army there. Planetary or no planetary. Yeah, screw it. Let's forget all these checks. If I have my third base, that's where I want my army. Is that my third? You know, when there's no, as a rally point, basically when there's nothing else going on. Okay, what if I'm trying to expand to my third, but my opponent's army is way bigger? I guess whenever he cancels a third, my army will go back. I'm just thinking I don't want to be trickling units out towards my third base and just having them die over and over again. Yeah, I think I like this. Okay, I think that was everything on my checklist. Let's see how it looks now. We'll run a game. I just realized my chat wasn't scrolling, so I've probably fallen way behind. Is killing your own units an option? It could be. I would like to, you know, as a bot, you would think it would be easier to just prevent not killing your own units to free up supply. As a human, you make that mistake, but as a bot, it should be easy not to. Yeah, I just kind of want to showcase this build in ProBots because I don't think it's going to be strong enough for the best Zergs. And I think that this first week, I have to have it done in time. Otherwise, I won't get to use it. So I don't mind hacking it together. Do the ghosts see the planetary summon used as a meat shield? No. Like, if this is my planetary fortress, they're going to be out front, like over here, all my units. Which I don't think is too bad, because they'll start kiting backwards over here, and they'll start kiting backwards over here, because whatever they're fighting, they're probably outraging the enemy. Ghosts and Marauders are pretty long range versus the basic Zerg units. I was thinking of putting them in the mineral line, like behind the planetary, but then, you know, the way I do the speed mining, there's move commands involved. So having anything in your mineral line is going to screw up the mining. Like normal mining is just all mineral walking, right? So they'll just pass through your units. But when you're doing these little move commands, then they'll start bumping into each other. So that's why I always keep my units out in front. So if this is my third base here, my rally point is going to be like here. I think if they're winning the fight, then that's fine. If they're losing the fight, they'll slowly kite backwards and then the planetary will get involved. Oh, I know something I wanted to change. That's second layer of tech. Somewhere in here. Yeah, instead of purchasing the medevac, let's purchase the starport. I had purchased medevac because the medevac would say, hey, I need a starport, so it would add starport to the list, and then the starport would be like, hey, I need a factory, so it would add the factory to the list. But then I wasn't like getting my bio upgrades until I got a medevac, because it was like saving the money for the medevac. So I'm like, let's just put in starport, and this will generate the factory as well. Get the bio upgrades going a little quicker. Okay, so they're rallying out over here. What do I need to, what do we do? So the max supply stuff will be hard to check. We gotta make sure we're ignoring overlords. That'll be hard to check versus the in-game AI as well. Build base on location. Well, it is building the base on location now. And we are rallying our units here when we started this. Moving out. That is a much bigger army than mine. I am spawning units for my enemy to make it stronger. This is probably a little unrealistic how much he has. I don't think it'll matter for this week, but I noticed my my marauders. I got my marauders set to like not be afraid of enemy damage, so they won't be afraid to like step into Hydra range to shoot them. But that also means they're not afraid of stepping into like corrosive biles and psi storms and stuff. So like they should be dodging some of that persistent damage. Yeah, even the ghost got nailed there. I think for week 1 we're against a bot that's mostly like roachling Hydra. Nothing in the spell casting. There could be Ravagers actually, I'm not sure. And who knows, that's just what I see what he has on the ladder. It could be a much stronger version that shows up to ProBots. But I think that's okay. All right, let's deploy this bot and try it against Canonana. Because mostly that Overlord thing is the thing I want to fix. Because the fact that they're chasing Overlords made for a 40-minute game, which was I don't want a 40-minute game showing up on ProBots when it looks like it's over in the first 10 minutes. Why aren't ghosts cloaking? I don't have any decloak logic. So the way my cloak logic works, well, first of all, they have to research cloak. So on the initial push, they probably don't have the ability to do it. But yeah, we do end up researching cloak. When we throw down the inch bays in the factory, we're also getting personal cloaking at that point. And the way we have it coded is, I've already forgotten. Should cloak if I'm not detected. So basically don't cloak if there's already an overseer on top of you. If I'm not full health. So even if I'm in a lot of danger, if no one's shooting me, then who cares? And then otherwise, if it's possible for me to be one shot, so if the amount of incoming damage given the units around me is greater than my current health, then I'll cloak. So that more or less means when I get low in health, I'll probably end up cloaking. Or if a cyclone locked onto me. So if a cyclone locks on, I'll immediately cloak to break the lock. So it's mostly used as a stay alive mechanic. But this can certainly be improved. Because like sometimes you might have the ability to cloak, which allows you to move in closer and then snipe infestors and snipe vipers and stuff like that, which my bot doesn't have the ability to do. So you could certainly expand on this logic. But for now, I think this is good because it means it's rarely going to cloak, and it'll probably only cloak when it's going to die anyways. And that way it won't be wasteful with the energy. So I already stopped the game. Never mind. All right, so that's there. Let's request some matches. Ketchuk versus Kanana. Oops. And let's do one against the top bot in the ladder just for kicks.
Target acquired.
Because the test games I've done against the top bot on the ladder, he would just put a Zergling in my expansion bases, burrowed, and then I'd never expand. Because at the time my bot wasn't building any Ravens. So now that I at least have the ability to clear the expansions, we'll get a better idea of how bad the top bot will trash me. Yeah, there's some stuff I did between the two streams. I really cleaned up the ghost logic. Let's see how ghosts work now. So basically every single game frame, the ghost will say, okay, if it's in the middle of casting, it won't do anything. So if it's already sniping. But if it's available, the first will say, can you EMP? So basically, do you have the energy? And, are you not interference matrixed or something like that? And then it'll look for an EMP position. Oh, I made my EMP smarter too. So if you remember versus Protoss, I would end up I would search 10 range around the ghost, and then it'd end up finding if it met a certain threshold of juiciness, it would drop an EMP there. But oftentimes when you look at just within 10 range and you find a juicy target, usually often just behind it, there'll be an even juicier target, but that's outside of range. So now whenever I find a juicy target, say right here, I'll look again around that area and see if there's even a better one behind it. And then I'll choose that one instead. Which means, yeah, I'm getting off better EMPs versus Protoss. Versus Zerg, it can EMP. I mean, if you catch a couple queens with over 100 energy, it'll EMP them. Certainly Vipers will always get the EMP, same with Infestors. So if it's not EMPing, the next thing you'll do is check for a snipe. Snipe target. We did something since last stream with this. So there's a bunch of unit types I won't snipe, like Zerglings and Broodlings and whatnot. I made this should snipe smarter. I can't remember what I did. Well, I did that thing with the Overlords, where if I can't reach it by my auto attack, then I'll snipe it. So if it's over like a dead zone. Which did help. Because my Ghost we get like permanently stuck on an Overlord sometimes if they're over a dead zone. So at least allowed them to snipe their way out of it. But there was some bigger change I made. I can't remember. That made it work way better. I think there's something that's causing them to like snipe from the front line, and I fixed that up. I think they were also trying to snipe units that were, you know, when units are like shooting you from the high ground, but you don't have high ground vision. My bot was trying to snipe those targets, which is impossible. So I did a fix around that. Yeah. And then if there's no snipe target, the next thing you'll do is check to see if it's a cloak. And then if that code's done, then basically it's just we're setting a target position and doing our micro, which is basically just kind of like stutter stepping. Attack, back up, come back, attack. And that's how micros function. Let's see if any of these matches are done. Probably too early. Oh yeah. Okay, so that we can already see a little improvement here, right? Before I did those changes, I beat Kananana in 38 minutes. After those changes, I just beat him in 9 minutes. So not being permanently distracted by overlords has probably helped. All right, let's close SC2, then we'll launch this replay. I feel like games on SC2 AI in general run a little faster than real time. So if it's a 15-minute game, it probably takes about 10 minutes. But it all depends on the bots, right? If the bots run really slowly, it could take twice as long as real time. If they're really quick bots, then it could be done in like 1/5 the time. Yeah, where I'm expecting bugs is when I go back and try my other builds. Because my code is so not separated well that something very specific to Ghost Marauder can maybe conflict with my Banshee Harass or something completely like unrelated. So I certainly want to run some test games just using random builds, or figure out what builds I want to use in the first week of ProBots and at least test those. And maybe just run one game against Terran and Protoss in case I lose the series. I want to make sure my bot isn't completely broken versus my second weak opponent. Alright, it's a problem there. My bot did not build any Marines. The ghost won't go finish it off because it's ignoring overlords. It's not great, but it's better than it could be. I don't know if this can hold up to a bunch of Zerglings. I think this could just come and overrun me if he chose. I think I saw something wrong there. So I think with important spellcasters, if they have 75 energy, then it's worth the EMP. But a queen is not the same thing as like a Templar or a Viper. I'm not sure if I should be including queens in like the mandatory EMP if there's just one of them. Yeah, that was 2 EMPs. I think the amount of time I'm waiting for the first EMP to land isn't long enough. But I couldn't actually figure out which ghost was EMPing. This one. That shot the second EMP, right? Alright, let's back up again. Yeah, like the EMP is like well landed, but he still hasn't lost the energy yet. Yeah, look at that. It's been landed for a while. I think I just kind of measured the time to the animation hit, but I'm not realizing that the... Or did it miss altogether? Maybe the first EMP missed. Oh my gosh, EMP range sucks. How did that miss the queen? Okay, so it's not a bug. It just failed on hitting the queen. Wow, how did that miss, man? Okay, now I'm not looking for a bug. Now I'm just looking at SC2. Saying, why? .604. Like, look at that ring. He's like entirely within the circle. How is that not hitting the queen? It's a 1.5 radius. before without the upgrade, which means it's the same size as like a barracks. Yeah, basically this circle here. Well, no, this is the size of a barracks. So imagine a circle within this square. That's how big the EMP radius is. And it just needs to catch the edge of the queen. And queens are fat units. I don't know how that missed. But at least it's not a bug. I don't think I want to be EMPing individual queens, though. Especially as they're snipeable. Now, Transfuse is stronger in the bot meta than it is in the human meta. Just because queens can, like, always be perfectly transfusing during a fight. But even still. Only building the starport now. We'll watch the micro, then we'll go back and take a look at the second layer of tech. Make sure it's building correctly. So it would be nice to have, you know, my Ravens and Vikings be out by now. One thing we're definitely not doing is we're not falling back every time we see this Overlord, which is nice. The nice thing about how the damage comes out in a big burst from snipe is that he can't like normally tries to burrow his roaches when they get low, but snipe means they never get low. They just go from full hit points to almost full hit points to dead. Okay, let's take a look at the production. Basically the moment I move out. So there I move out. Inge Bay Factory. Inge Bay. Yeah, okay, so the starport starts before the bio upgrades. I think that's how I wanted it. And then starport completes. And the first unit it builds is a medevac. That is not correct. Should not be building a medevac yet because there's that code I had to build the train starport units, choose unit. Do I need cloak? No. So the next thing is there's no kills. Well, there might be a kill squad. If it sees an overlord, it should call for a Viking. Otherwise, well, the very next thing is if we're facing Zerg and the number of Vikings I have is less than 4. Yeah, it should be building a Viking, not a medevac. Where did I tell it to build a medevac? right. No, never mind. Not right. Because that code is unreachable. Maybe I forgot to rebuild my project before I did this final change. Because the last change I did, oh, purchase unit starport. That's not purchase structure. Well, I don't know what would happen with that. That's probably confusing for it though. Okay, that wasn't easy. I'm pretty sure that fixed it. Anyways, back here, hinge bays are. One of them is approaching completion, so that's why it's adding on the armory. The timing of the armory depends on my resources, whether I can afford it or not. But it should finish more or less around time for +2. Yeah. Then I built a Raven because he has burrowed units, so that's correct. And then once I have one Raven, it should be Vikings from that point forward. Until I get up to 4. And the game didn't quite go long enough for me to check supply, right? Because I remember I need to be saving supply for my starport units and not be building from my barracks. But looking pretty good. I'm oversaturated here. Because I have nowhere else to put SCVs. Yeah. I go 2 on each patch, but once I have nowhere to put SCVs, I'll triple up on the faraway patches. Well, first I'll fill the gas geysers, even if I don't want 3 in gas, because I have extra SCVs. Then I'll triple up on the faraway patches. And then if I still have floating SCVs after that, I'll start distance mining to the next base. Alright, that game versus Eris is done now. Yeah, the game still functions the same way, so with the enemies revealed, then we'll be able to see the remaining structures as snapshots, they call it in the API. Snapshots basically something you can see in the fog of war. So like, if you look at a base and you see a mineral patch there in the fog of war, that's a snapshot of a mineral patch. Okay. We lasted 15 minutes against Eris. Let's see what happened. I'm guessing with how late it took me to get that Raven out, it's probably, again, because he has Zergling's Burrowed in my expansions. Right now, the only way my bot knows how to clear Burrowed Zerglings is to send a Raven there and put down auto turrets. Same with Creep. So on my Sky Terran builds, that works fine. But on a build like this, where I barely get Ravens and I get them super late, it would be better to send my army and scan, which my bot's incapable of doing at the moment. EMP only works if you get the center of an enemy unit. I don't think that's true because you can EMP the corner of an orbital command, and it'll remove the energy. And that's like the biggest energy unit I can think of. You don't have to hit the center point for that. It's probably like just a millimeter outside of range of getting that EMP on that queen. Oh, speaking of which, let me 8x this just so I can skip around and go back to the code. I don't want to EMP a single queen. So let's go back to that EMP code. Select EMP position right. This will be in my enemy mapping for units. Okay, so the energy of the unit, and then we have a multiple. $75 times 3. I actually don't have it at the same multiple level as Ghosts and Oracles. There was an Overseer nearby too. Maybe I thought I could catch the Overseer in it. So the energy was what, 84? And then I multiply that by 1.75. And there's no other value for the EMP there. So it would just be a threshold of 147. Where do I store that threshold? Is it up here? No. Oh. Okay, so I lowered the EMP threshold if I have lots of ghost energy available. Which is probably what happened. Because I was noticing versus Protoss, like, I wasn't EMPing like 2 stalkers because I'm like, oh, that's not good enough for an EMP. But I had like 15 ghosts of full energy at the time. So I'm like, well, I probably should be EMPing like everything at this point. So it's probably because I had a stockpile of energy is why it EMP'd the Zerg. Maybe I should base on the race I'm facing too. Because Zerg, there's always snipe targets almost. So based on the number of EMPs I have ready, if I have at least 4 EMPs ready, I have the threshold. Yeah, this makes sense versus Protoss, because there's very few snipe targets. You're almost always EMPing. I should probably include the race here. How do I do this? And then there's Terran as well. Protoss, there's very few snipe targets. There's a lot of snipe targets. Terran, I mean, you don't really want to be sniping Marines, so there's actually very few snipe targets as well. Ghosts, Marauders. So I think we just care if it's Zerg, right? I think the way I'll just do it is forget the Snum EMP things if it's Zerg. If it's Zerg, we'll just return 200. Otherwise, if it's Protoss and we have a bunch of EMPs ready, then we'll lower the threshold to 100. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at this game. Look at the minimap. Pretty sure we're going to come back from this. The one thing I think I can do for following weeks is create a version of this ghost that's more for like assisting my other builds. So like a very tentative stay back sort of ghost, not one that's like fighting on the front lines. And I'll always be looking for like sniping infestors or EMPing or nuking. Just something to kind of supplement, like, I don't know, my Mass Raven build or my Battle Mech build. Hmm? Okay, so they're indecisive because this Zergling and this Zergling are pretty close. It looks like they're just ignoring the Zerglings altogether. Yeah, they're completely ignoring these single Zerglings. I have code that when there's like individual Zerglings on the map, I'll just peel off one Viking or peel off one Hellion to deal with it. And then let the rest of my army continue doing whatever it's doing. I think that's what's happening. I think my bot's saying like, okay, peel off a Hellion to deal with this Zergling, and then just ignore it. And of course I don't have a Hellion. I feel like there's a bug there. This is a bug that's probably been around forever. And I think I've seen it a lot too, like a single Zergling just shredding a mineral line.
Our SCVs are under attack.
That's pretty good out of Eros. He's like running away, but when he spots a ghost on its own,
Our SCVs
he'll like jump on it and surround it. Same thing he did with this Marauder. He jumped the Marauder, but then once my units converged, he's like, okay, I'm out of here again. And the whole time, the single Zergling is up to 6 kills.
Our SCVs are under attack. Research complete. Our SCVs are under attack.
Okay, so I'll still kill a creep tumor if I'm within an attack range of it.
Upgrade complete.
I just won't go after it as a position to run to.
Our SCVs are under attack.
It's medevacs on being overworked trying to get these SCVs fully repaired.
Can't hold them alone.
Our SCVs are under attack.
Here's a cloak to us, by the way. So it does work. The one advantage this build does have is I don't think any bot uses ghost or snipe on the ladder. I think the only ghost uses I've seen on the ladder is for nukes. So, you know, as these are rule-based bots, a lot of them probably don't have any rules for what to do versus ghosts and snipe. So I'm getting like really good value in these fights when I do get to take them.
I can't build here.
But most of the time I'm just
Mineral
chasing after
field
Zerglings, or
depleted.
like over here not chasing after Zerglings.
Too hot.
Mineral field depleted.
Hey, by the way, wasn't my third base supposed to be a planetary? I don't know.
Mineral field depleted. Add-on base. Our SCVs are under attack. Our SCVs are under attack.
I can't build here.
So I am approaching max. Although we're probably going to lose a bunch of units here. Doesn't snipe sound cool? Oh my god. That fungal. RIP army. No detection. No code to scan versus lurkers or flee from workers. Lurkers. This is basically one of the very first builds I used that uses a ground army. So all of a sudden things that like this I've never had to deal with before, like lurkers. Auto work into it. Because I guess lurkers don't actually have an attack range, right? Or an attack at all. I think just each of these spines is like a kind of like a spell effect. So I think my bot's looking at a lurker and saying, okay, there's this burrowed unit that has no attack range. And these spines are something I don't even look at all. Can you snipe when you're fungled? Does anyone know? Because you're technically taking damage. The fights are actually going good until lurkers arrived. And like technically Ghost Marauders shouldn't be that bad versus Lurkers, right? Lurkers are the marine slaughterers. Marauders do bonus damage to them, Ghosts can snipe. Lurkers outrange snipe, so they can interrupt it. Maybe I should try to over-snipe Lurkers, just assuming I'm going to be interrupted. What if he's like... Looks like he's going for Zergling's rounds too. The way he kind of ran past the Marauder. The Marauder will shoot, like of all these Zerglings, you can see this one's the weakest. So that will always be... He'll target off the weakest ones. So there's a couple things I want to look at. I've already forgotten one of them. Lurkers, I don't think I need to worry about next week, hopefully. And if as long as I happen to have a Raven around, it will probably be not horrible if I run into Lurkers. But if I don't happen to have a Raven around, then I lose my entire army like this game. Fungal. I think anytime you take damage, fungal is interrupted. Or snipe is interrupted. So I think it should be impossible to snipe when you're fungled. So I should make sure I'm not sniping while fungled. So it can snipe. Oh, I have that there already. Yeah, so if I'm standing in storm, or any sort of persistent damage, like a Ravager Bile position, or if I'm fungled, then I return false. Okay, so I got that already. So I guess they weren't trying to snipe and fungled. Yeah, I think at the end there I just ran out of gas. So my bot was just building Marauders as the gas was trickling in. It's like you got an idle barracks and you have 50 gas, build a Marauder. And then the gas never got to 125, so everything I was building was Marauders. What if I'm trying to build a Raven and I'm at like 150 gas? Then I won't be able to build the Raven. I'll go to my train barracks units code and then I'll build a Ghost and spend all the gas. So if I don't have a gas bank, it could be really hard to get a Raven out because I'll keep spending all the gas on Ghosts. I should probably handle that. So if I can afford a unit, I build it. But if I can't afford the unit, then I should probably set that money aside. Unit to produce. I think that's what this method does. Yeah, subtract the cost and supply for that unit. Game cache free supply. I don't think I've ever used this variable.